Welcome back, everyone. And Shannon and I are going to continue to answer listener questions.
Great. So the next one comes in from Andy, who submitted this question through our Facebook page. So that's just a reminder for folks listening, reach out to us either through our website, Facebook, Instagram, or anywhere you can find us. Feel free to shoot us a question and we'll add it to our list. But Andy asks, my daughter has noticed the following option on the Common App for several schools. And Andy puts it in quotes, some applicants maintain an online presence that showcases their background, talents, or creativity. If you maintain such a site, please feel free to enter the URL here. So Andy's daughter is a Redbubble seller. Would a link to her shop on that website be useful, or would it be a distraction from her academic achievements? She is applying as an art major. In general, what would be good and bad use of this option? Thank you.
I mean, I kind of thought it might be, I want her to have some kind of a resume that highlights all of this. So one of the things I just want to be sure about is that given that she's got this kind of cool, this cool artwork, that's reflected. And so make sure that goes at least in the additional information area or in a resume. Maybe, I don't know. It was a really, really interesting question. I err on the side of saying, yes, go ahead and include it. Redbubble sounds like a really cool website. I'd never heard of it before, but just make sure that the context is there in the rest of the application so that they know what it is. Because otherwise what you want to do is sort of create your own website, honestly, and maybe have the link to Redbubble in there. Because if the context isn't there and they go straight to a sales website, they might be confused. And you have to keep in mind that the reader has like very few minutes per file. I always flash back to myself working at University of Chicago, 11 o'clock at night, trying to finish up my files. I'm really tired and I'm not going to go down a wild goose chase, right? So just make sure the information is easily accessible is what I would say, and make sure that the proper context is there. But in general, linking to a website that shows the kind of things that she's doing, that sounds like a great idea.
Awesome. Does it make any difference, Sally, the fact that she's going to be an art major, that this is a website that sells her art, as opposed to if she was applying as an, I don't know, a history major, would that be any different?
I mean, that's a good question. I think with an art major, it's probably even more important to do something like this. Like one of the things that sort of worries me when I talk to students who say they want to be art majors, but they don't really do much more than like doodle or do some stuff on the computer. Like the fact that she's got a full business already is really cool, and I think is something that the colleges are going to really like. Like this is a real artist. This is a student who probably can't even imagine doing anything else, and I think the colleges are going to really love that. If it was a history major, it would sort of depend on a variety of other factors, and I think the context would be especially important. But in general, I err on the side of saying yes, for sure, but just again, make sure the context is there and make sure that they're not going to have to like dig around or go to a website that doesn't take you right to the page of that student. So
makes sense. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So from Anonymous on Facebook, my husband stopped working in October, but has gotten some income from creating an NFT project. I have no idea what NFT is, so I'm hoping that you know, which I assume is treated like a stock sale. So how is a non-income earning family treated if only income comes from, say, stocks, NFTs, but no regular income?
Yeah, so I can tell you the bare minimum about what NFTs are. NFT stands for non-fungible token. And I am sure there are many podcasts which exist that talk for hours and hours about NFTs. I will say very briefly, my very limited understanding, it's basically like a digital collectible. It would be sort of discussed along with cryptocurrency, but it may be sort of a piece of art that people can buy sort of the digital rights to. Kind of thing. That is the very basic explanation of it. And I'm not going to dig myself any deeper than that. But to get to the heart of the question here, how income from creating an NFT project would be treated in the financial aid application process would be treated no differently than any other income, than the salary that I get for working for Bright Horizons and the money that you get for selling your NFT, looked at exactly the same in the financial aid process. Income is income, and the financial aid offices don't really draw many more sort of dig deeper really than that. They care what your income is. They don't really care, for the most part, where it came from. There may be, sort of slight complications of whether or not you're required to file a tax return based on how much income you received. If and how it's sort of shows up on a tax return, whether this is your business creating and selling NFTs, and then it would show up as like business income, or is it more like a stock sale? Is this somebody else's NFT that you have bought and then sold, like an investment? Then it would show up as a capital gain on a tax return. But either way, financial aid offices are essentially just looking at your total income in the end. If the income is minimal, so you don't even have to file a tax return, they ask for the amount of untaxed income that you received. So it really makes no difference to the financial aid process where the income came from, if it's from a salaried job or an hourly wages, or if it's investment income. It's really all the same to the financial aid office. They try and eliminate, sort of look at folks on an even playing field. So folks that make $50,000 from NFT sales are looked at the same as folks that make $50,000 in wages. Makes absolutely no difference to the financial aid process.
Okay. All right, great.
And I guess I would say a difference from your perspective may be that this is not income you can count on in the future. If that is the case, that's something you can bring up on appeal to a financial aid office. If I created this one-time NFT, had this one-time perhaps big sale, or I made a lot of money in this 1 year that I'm reporting on the FAFSA, but it's not going to be repeated in future years, that's a grounds for appeal, where you'd write to the financial aid office and say, this is not really my typical income. Please take that into consideration. But otherwise, absolutely no difference. Okay, so the next question for you, Sally, comes in from Aparna. And she asks, my daughter is doing activism work in the environment wildlife field. Her work has been covered by a lot of media houses, both nationally and internationally. Plus, she is an ambassador for a few global organizations. Wow. As there's a lot going on in her activities, I was wondering if having a personal website would be a good way to consolidate her work. Oh, and you just referenced this in the last question about the art. The details are really important, but in the Common App, it would be difficult to showcase it. Most importantly, the extensive media coverage is hard to capture. How do admissions officers view personal websites?
I mean, it depends, in all honesty. I think if they provide a click, like if they provide a place where you could put in the link, like they will, there's a decent chance that they're going to go look at it. And so I think a website is a good idea. I do recommend that you curate everything carefully. I would say to a certain degree, less is more. Don't put down all of her media coverage, put down the most impressive media coverage. I mean, I think sometimes parents and I want to just say, Aparna sounds or your daughter sounds remarkable. And so I want her, how remarkable her accomplishments are to be highlighted. So if what she does is sort of buried under the details, that's actually not as good as if you sort of really highlight, kind of do some sort of a resume, use additional information if you don't have access to a resume to kind of highlight exactly what she's doing, and then use the website to highlight some of the most impressive media coverage, et cetera. But so don't feel the need to include every single detail if there's a lot of it, because if you've got, usually I say one page, more than one page, they'll stop looking at it. And your daughter's case, maybe two. I wouldn't go farther than that. I don't care how impressive she is. You have to, again, think about the audience. who is going to look at it? Are they going to look at it? Are they going to keep going when they have a billion more applications
Yeah.
to read? And honestly, your daughter will not be the only one in their pool who is that impressive. That's the stunning thing about this. She
Yeah.
is certainly impressive. She will be far from the only one. Other options too that you might want to think about is you can do like a LinkedIn page as well. And I recommended that to another student of mine who'd done a lot of pretty cool advocacy work, like, and was doing a podcast about it. So I had her set up a LinkedIn page as well. And I think those are kind of easy for people to find when there's like a quick Google search as well, if the college itself doesn't allow you to do like a live web link. So that's something else to think about. But definitely use a resume if they give you that option, and definitely use the additional information section of the common application first and foremost, because the colleges will definitely look at those. They will not necessarily look at a website.
Interesting. And it just got, this may not be the case for Aparna's daughter, but it got my wheels turning for students who do, Aparna's daughter's working on environmental things. There may be, sounds like it's more advocacy than maybe straight science, but very scientific, technical, impressive work. I would imagine an admissions officer is going to be a lay audience. So correct me if I'm wrong. I would guess that you want, wherever you're explaining this, if it's a personal website or in a resume, do we want it to be in layman's language so that the admissions officer understands it? Or is there a place for very technical things?
You definitely want the layperson's language, but it's tricky because some colleges will actually forward interest that research that seems interesting to faculty members to see if it appeals to them. So I usually recommend like some kind of a link to an abstract or something like that. So kind of like a layperson's description, but also the scientific description, so that if a faculty person gets involved, they can review it as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, all right. I think we have time for one more question. We'll see how wordy you are, Shannon.
I'll try and keep it short.
Yeah. All right. So Gloria asked, if we have already filed the FAFSA, but need to change something in regards to income, can we still do it? This was end of March that this was asked, or is it too late to do it? Thank you in advance.
Yeah, so I think in my mind, a couple things going on, but this hinges on what is this update? Is this a correction or is it a change? And this is not always super clear to people. You are allowed to correct a FAFSA at any time. If you left a zero off, added an extra zero into your income, you can absolutely correct that at any time. And at this point, and even in March, where financial aid applications likely have already been reviewed, in addition to actually fixing the FAFSA, I would shoot an email to the financial aid office to call their attention to this correction and ask them to re-review your file. What you are not allowed to do on the FAFSA is update information based on a change in circumstance. If you said my income, you initially reported your income from the year that they asked you to, but now you've lost your job. So you want to go into the FAFSA and write zero for income. You are not allowed to update information that was correct at the time of reporting, or you reported you had $10,000 in the bank and you just went and bought a new car. So now you have zero. If at the time you submitted the FAFSA, it was 10,000, you need to leave that information on the FAFSA. You're not allowed to change it. What you can do when you've had a change in circumstances is write the financial aid office directly, ask them to consider your change in circumstances, explain what happened, document anything you need to. But those type of updates you don't make directly on the FAFSA. You have to go to the financial aid office and to ask for permission, ask them to update the information and re-review your financial aid offer.
Okay.
As opposed to corrections you can make directly.
All right. Thank you so much, Shannon.
You are so welcome, Sally.
All right. So be sure to listen in next week, because we'll be addressing whether and when you should hire an independent college counselor like we have here at College Coach. Obviously, I do think there are times when it is very good to hire someone like me. And then also we'll be talking about scholarships for LGBTQ students for Pride Month. So definitely listen in And finally, I want to remind you that you don't have to listen to our shows live. Every show is accessible 24/7 on the Voice America website. You can find us on YouTube. You can download every show for free on iTunes. And don't forget, we're here every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.